So make sure that you have to first know that why we configure this part. Application, the client person wants to speak to my database instance. So he has to contact to my listener. So this listener is like a gatekeeper or kind of a watchman. So open this file. By default, this file will not be available. You have to prepare it, or fresh file has to be open it and then add the below details. Really mandatory. For remote connections, you wanted to connect to my database instance, which is Oracle database instance. So you need a mediator or middleman called listener. This is one of the foreground process. For configuring this particular listener, we need to update certain file. That file name called listener.ora file. Here, this is the one. So where is the location of this file? The default location is inside the Oracle home path, which we call as a software installation path. There we have a folder name called network. Inside that folder we have a folder name called admin. So this file will be exist in this particular location. So you have to go to this particular folder. You just open this file. By default, this file will not be available. You have to prepare it, or fresh file has to be open it and then add the below details. The details you have to pass on, or you have to write it, is first one is my listener name. The listener name can be anything. Default name of the listener is expected is listener, but you can give listener 1, listener 2 or L3, whatever you want to give it, you can give that. Second one is my listener address, sometimes called listening location or endpoints. So the listener address will have 3 values. One is called host. In that you can put the IP address or the host name. It is one of them, so you can put the port. The default port is 1421. You can put any value between 1 to 65,535. 65,535. Protocol is TCP. So these 3 combined together called listener address or just address. So the listener name followed by listener address is what the listening location. Next, the instance description. So whom to redirect? Now the point here which we discussed earlier, it has to redirect the connections to my instance. So we given first the listener name, followed by we mentioned that where you have to listen, on which port number. This is the machine server IP plus the port number you have to mention. So what I mentioned here, you should make sure that, let me just explain few more points. What I said here, the machine will have, this is a server, right? We called here the machine. The machine will have a respect to IP address, we called here IP. So that IP and plus you need a port number for this. Obviously the protocol is TCP. The machine will have IP address, that IP you have to give it to him, followed by you have to mention the port number and you mention the protocol. So these 3 together is called my address of my listener. These 3 you have to mention it so that the listener can refer in the file those values and then it gets started. So we have to start it. Anyhow, I'll just explain it the way to do it. That's it. Let's now continue with the next one. So here we will try to add the further details. Here, let me add it. The next point here I need to explain here is my instance details. So my instance description, other word, it required a global DB name. That's nothing but your service names. In case of a pluggable database, it is your pluggable database name. And if it is a rack, then you have to mention the service name of the rack. Then the next one is your software path. Again, you have to mention your database home path and your instance name. These three together combined value called your instance description. So now where do I mention that? Let me just explain it here. Here. So what I mentioned here, these are the values. What is my file name? The file name is here listener.ora file. So this file is present inside this location. So the file has name called listener.ora file. Your spelling should not be mistake, otherwise this will not work. Followed by inside, once you open this file, inside this file you will see the first value will be listener name, and then open the bracket with the description and close the bracket here. And next, inside the description you have to mention the address. Again, open the bracket, mention the address, and that address bracket has to be closed here. Next, inside the address you can mention the protocol, host, port, any order, doesn't matter. You can mention first host and then port and then protocol, or vice versa. And then once you mention these all value, it is called listener information is done. Now I need to mention the next would be my listener will redirect the connections to these many instances. So whom it has to redirect? Now here your client is trying to connect to my listener, and listener will redirect the connections to my instance. And this is sometimes called system identifier. So for that you just mention the details. The list of your SID, we call SID list. In that SID description, in that you have to mention your root container name, root container, the root container service name, we call it as the show parameter, whatever value you have it. So this is for root container purpose. This is for your PDB1, this is for your PDB2 to connect. In these three values, we do mention here, respect to the service name. So this is my show parameter service underscore names value. This would be my PDB name. This is also one of my PDB name. So these three, again you have to mention 3 times, because you have 3 different pluggable or 3 different containers you wanted to allow to redirect my listener to reach out to this particular containers by my application. So hence I will be adding 3 times. Again, there are 2 different way you can go ahead and there are 2 different methods where you can go ahead and register your services. No need to add all all services here. Rather you can just mention the static registration in your tnsnames.ora, and then that set your listener local listener parameter. If you do that, that is also possible, and that is I have detailed wise I have given in the other video. You can go ahead and refer that as well. Make sure that you add this 3 entry and then save this file. So this is the one important we can say the file which will help you to make sure that the application should allow to connect to my database instance through this my listener. Listener name can be any name, but the file has to be listener.ora. You can configure multiple listener, you can configure as many listeners, but listener file should be the same. So the file is the same, but the number of listeners can add it as many you want. You can add it as many. So one listener can listen on multiple instances, or multiple listener can listen on same instance. It is possible. So both combinations are available. Now once after you configure your listener.ora file, here you go. Next you have to go and configure my next file would be tnsnames.ora file. So in the tnsnames.ora file, Again, sometime we call the tnsnames.ora file will be available on the client side, but we also keep it in the server side to go ahead and test my connections before giving to my application. As a DBA, my job is to verify this is connecting or not. To test it, I will also keep it in my server side as well. So now here, the first value what you keep it in this file here, let me explain one by one. The first point we have to remember in this particular file, this is my tnsnames.ora file. Again, the location would be same, Oracle Home Network Admin. In case of a client side, this is a client software path and network admin. Here, the first value we call it as here, this value is called connect identifier. What you have to tell? Connect identifier. And here, whatever they mentioned is my listener address. This is my entire value listener address. In the address, again, we have protocol, host, and the port number. Finally, we have to tell which database you wanted to connect. That is called connect data. In our case, it is my service name. In this example, I am trying to connect to my CDB1 PDB1 container or pluggable database. So this is my entire details for one connection details. This is for another connection details. So one, I wanted to connect to my PDB1, that is a name called CDB1 PDB1, and the other one I wanted to connect to my CDB1 PDB2. Here I can mention A value, B value, whatever, but this value should be matched to your service name, whatever you mentioned in the above. Once you completed this file editing, save the file. That's it. Let's see this whole with practical part and do it one by one. Here, let's try to show you with practical. Here you go. This is my one of the machine which I just connected, and as per the agenda, we will try to refer this particular file $Oracle Home and network admin and listener.ora. In my example, I just already prepared it, so hence it is available. Maybe in your case, you can just refer, maybe may not be available, and you can just prepare the fresh file. No need to worry if it is not available. You just have to prepare the file and start adding the entry here. So what I will do, I'll just try to show you without referring this file. If I try to do, I'll rename it this file. Let's say example, I'll rename this particular file here. Hold, and now try to go for this. File is exist? No, it is not exist. Previously it was present. I just renamed it so that I wanted to demonstrate from the scratch. I renamed it. Now we will go ahead and open this file. So once you open this file, it will be just an empty file. As I mentioned, it is a new file. You can see that here it is a new file and do not have any right now lines in it. So it is a 0 character and 0 lines. Let's start with the press insert. Now here mention the insert, followed by you just mention the listener name, followed by here you have to mention description. In the description you have to mention what is my address of my list. So here I'll just say address. I will mention my host value. This is my 192.168.56.11 IP address, and this is my port number. I'm looking for the port number 15. Now based on this, 1521 is my default. I'll just take this is the default, and protocol here TCP. Bracket I just closed for address also, and one for protocol, and enter, and description bracket you have to close it. So make sure that this bracket is also important. If you properly not close the bracket, and your configuration will not be proper, so it will not start as expected. Once it is done, you have to add another entry here, SID list and my listener name, followed by you have to mention here SID list. In that you have to mention here SID description, and in this SID description you mention here global DB name. This is my first database root container purpose. I'll just edit my CDB1 here, and here is my Oracle software path. I'll just mention here, you should know that what is the location where you install your software. In my example, it is a U01 app Oracle product 19.3.0 and DB home 1 bracket complete, and here the SID name. This is what I just mentioned. Now here I have to mention description. This is a space and description bracket closed, and here the SID list description the options is closed. Same way I just have to do here, just copy paste this value. Let's say here this from the SID description, you just copy it, just select it, and here you paste it. That's it. So once you paste it, that means this is for second PDB. So here I will put my CDB1 PDB. Similarly, I'll paste it one more time, paste it, and done. So let's now change it. Instance name is same, but you have to just mention your PDB1. So what we actually are looking for here is we have one listener, and that listener will redirect to either to root container, either to PDB1 or PDB2. It's ready to redirect the incoming connections to any one of these containers. So the first value would be the listener name, here the service name, software path, and my instance name. Repeated the same story, but only the changes would be your container name. Accord. After that, you save this file, followed by you just verify cat, and this is what the entry has been mentioned. Here you go, and you can see that this is what the whole list is. Let's start with the LSNRCTL start listener 1. Now if you do not start and try to check the status, it says that no listener, that means not started. What you have to do, you have to just say start here. After say start, then this gets started, and you can see that whom all it is ready to redirect the connections. My instance as well as my services, the listener is ready to redirect the connections. Now we will try to check PSFNE of pipe grep LSNR. So here you will see that listener is running with this name called listener 1. We will try to now connect to my database container by using SQL plus. My username is system, and password you should not write it in the terminal, rather I just showing you for demonstration purpose. So I given here my system password is Oracle for you. The IP address, I just have to refer what is my IP address, what I have given for my machine, and that is to my listener. Port number 1421, followed by the PDB1 which you want to connect to, service name here. So that means you have to followed by after port number slash, you have to give it here. So let's explain once again. SQL plus is my utility, this is my username, and this is my pass. Slash is again oblique and followed by the password, and at the rate, this is we call connect identifier, connection details or connect descriptor. So now this entire giving in the terminal itself is called easy connect, EZ connect. So let's now connect it. It is now ready. So you can verify show container name. I am connected to which container, CDB1, PDB1, what it is mentioned here. Same way you can go ahead and check what is my username and what is my container name. You can see that I am connected to system user and my container name is CDB1, PDB1, which has been now referred. So instead of writing this entire again and again in the terminal, why can't I keep it this all information in my file? That file name is called tnsnames.ora. Now same again, what I will do, I will try to rename the existing one for a demonstration purpose. Now here Oracle home network admin and names.ora. This file is, in my case, it is exists. I'll rename it so that I can show you from the scratch. Here we go. Now it is no more exists. Consider in real time also, once you install your software, may not be available this file. So in that case, you have to open the file. It's a fresh file. So once you open this fresh file, it is again, it's a new file. As I mentioned, it is no more having any entry in it. Start with your connection details or connect identifier name. So here I will type ABC equal to, you can give anything here. I just mentioned here ABC followed by description. So you have to mention here as it is what you mentioned in your listener.ora file, the address details. So here I need to mention address equal to, and here I need to mention host equal to the IP address what you mentioned for listener. If you are not sure, what you can do, you can just duplicate the connections, log in with the Oracle, followed by just set the environment variable. In my case, my instance name is CDB1. I just double check it is there in this file. So here, this is what my instance name. I already know that, so hence it is mentioned. Otherwise, you first check what are my instances, and in that I'm using this instance. I will take that CDB1, and that once you noted, you set the environment variable, and followed by you open your file. What is the file name? Oracle home, network, admin, and listener.ora. So here you compare with your what you need to write it down in my connection string. So what I said, you have to make note here in the description listener name, the same way you have to mention here ABC. Let's reopen the file. In this file, what is the file name? tnsnames.ora. What I need to add it, this is my connect identifier name, followed by the listener address details as it is. So even you can copy paste this value here, it is good, but let me write it down in front of you. Address, that is my IP address, bracket complete. Again open the bracket, port number 1521, followed by bracket again closed, open again bracket, protocol, and followed by TCP. Bracket closed for the TCP protocol, and followed by this bracket has to be closed for this address. Enter and close the description bracket. Now here you need to add one more options. What you have to say here, 2 spaces, followed by which database you want to connect. I say here my service name is, my PDB name is CDB1 PDB, and here bracket closed. So this connect data stand for connect database, and service name your container database name, and here this is my CDB1. Once you mention this is what it has to match. Remember, that's the point. What I said here, this value has to match with this value. If it is not matching, you will get a problem. Let's now save it. After this is added, let's save it. Now how do you connect? SQL plus. Now let's show you here, right? And 10 value, and this is the. That's it. You can see here, this is what it has been mentioned. Now in this case, what is my first value called? Connect identifier. So you have to type SQL plus username, and you just mention here. You open this first file. What I said, you do SQL plus system slash Oracle, for you it's my password, for your system user @ABC. What I mentioned here, whatever you mentioned in the ABC value, that has to be given. If you don't mention this ABC value here, then you will get an error. If you mention, normally what we do, we mention here whatever the name of the service you given. This value commonly people use this value same. It is the best practice, and that value you mention it here while connecting @. Now in case here I given a service name, this has to be actually your PDB name, and here if I give ABC, then you have to write @ABC. Here if you mention XYZ, then you have to mention XYZ based on this file. Point to note. Let's continue here. Let's try to connect. Is it connected? Yes. Now let's show you that this is connected. Yes, it is connected. SQL plus system slash its password @ABC. So why it is connected? Because I given the proper ABC value here based on my tnsnames.ora file, whatever value I given here, that value I given mentioned. If in case I given that value as wrong, example, instead of ABCD I mentioned rather than ABC, I get this error. What is that error I get? Let's show you. Here you go. Instead of ABC, I mentioned ABCD, then you get this error. Could not resolve connect identifier specified. So I mentioned in the file tnsnames.ora ABC, but I mentioned here ABCD, they are not matching. So as I said, you may get this kind of error here. If I mentioned here ABC, but in this case ABC value not matching with here at the rate value. If they are mismatch, you expect this error. Connect identifier specified is not resolving or could not resolve the connect identifier specified. It's a commonly faced error. So this is simple, where you just have to change it as ABC, or you are interested to have that ABCD only, then open the file, make it ABCD here and save it, and then do it here also ABCD. So this is what I just mentioned, then you can mention ABCD. Now I can refer it, it is now able to connect. Now in case if you do wrong here, an example, if I open the file based on my here the connection details, if I mention here 15, this is IP address is 11, but if I don't mention the 11 IP, then I'll get a error. So you should make sure that the IP has to match, the port number has to match, and the service name has to match. That is my global DB name and the service name has to match.